here.
Welcome to Bird's Eye View Media. Back in the studio. Hopefully it looks a little better this time. We'll see.
Yeah, I thought this was an interview for Lowe's.
Yeah. So first, let's talk about
Sex?
Room.
Baby?
Let's talk about The Room.
That?
No,
Seems
just
like-
Room, not The Room, just Room.
A room?
Just
This room?
No, just proper noun
What
room.
room are we referring to?
Yeah. So there's a movie called Room starring Brie Larson and a kid named
Jacob Tremblay.
Tremblay, who is a 9-year-old who plays a 5-year-old. It got a lot of hype and it was nominated for Best Picture, and we both have seen Room now, and I personally thought that Room was a very good movie.
I thought it sucked.
Okay, so
In my educated opinion.
Basically, if you haven't seen Room, this is going to contain spoilers, obviously, because we're going to talk about the whole movie. So if you haven't seen it and you plan to actually see it, then maybe don't watch this or come back and watch it later. But if you don't plan on watching it, or if you have watched it, let's see what people thought.
I like how you just took the time to give them a warning. But in truth, I don't fucking care. Just watch the video.
Yeah. So basically what happens in Room is Brie Larson is a mom who was kidnapped and abducted at, I believe, like age 17 or an early age.
I think it was age 19.
Yeah, and a young age. And she was basically kept in a shed with a bed, a kitchen, a bathroom, all the bare necessities. And she's basically held captive by a guy named Old Nick.
And for record,
I think it's Nick.
a shed is inadequate living conditions for any individual of an adult nature, but okay for children.
Okay. And basically, going into the movie, I thought like 90% of the movie would have taken place in the shed. But shockingly enough, they escaped the shed. They're probably in the shed less than half of the movie. It's probably like...
No, it was a good chunk of the movie, because I read the description and anticipated from the description that most of this movie would be about what happened after the shed.
So yeah, that's the opposite of what I thought.
Yeah, and I felt like we were in the shed for way too long.
Okay, I don't know. I thought the shed was interesting. I think it was about as long as it needed to be, because I liked to fully understand what the daily living was like how they killed time, basically, how she explained the world to her son, how she handled him when he was upset.
Let's address that right off the bat. You just said explain the world to her son. Now, obviously, if you paid attention to any of the hype before the movie, you know that the child is played by, again, Jacob Tremblay, who is indeed a boy. Now, sitting down to watch this movie, they don't fully explain what's going on at the beginning, so you're just kind of piecing it together, and they keep referring to it as a boy, but it sounds, acts, and talks like a girl, and...
Well, it's a tiny
the first
child.
Half hour of the movie, I thought it was a girl.
I think
that they were referring to as a boy, just so that way this old Nick would not do anything indecent to her, like he does to the mother.
I feel like a big part of it is simply they don't have the resources to cut the hair. It's probably not really a priority for her to be caring about what her son looks like. They're both trapped in a room their entire lives anyways. But I'm assuming they probably weren't given scissors or razor blades because she had attacked Old Nick in the past trying to escape. So, that's kind of... Everyone probably did think that at the start of the movie. But it's not really that important.
Sense, but they probably could have done something a little bit so there wasn't a confusion. Like, I literally assumed that it was a girl that she was referring to as a boy because he never sees the child as a protection thing.
I don't know. I just think a lot of it was to kind of demonstrate they don't have access to everyday type of amenities like that. But moving on, down the plot line, so... we get to know what Old Nick is like. He basically comes in to give them supplies and have sex with Brie Larson, who I can't remember her character's name, but...
me neither.
But...
Oh, yeah.
Joy. Okay. And so basically, we understand the lifestyle, and then she comes up with this plan, where she fakes him being very ill and then fakes him dying and then he jumps out of the truck, finds a stranger, and they eventually get out of the room. And that is where I think the movie really becomes good, because, the whole concept is fairly interesting. We have not seen that many movies where someone is raised in this, completely closed off environment from the world. And I really liked seeing the child's name.
Jacob Tremblay.
Yes.
Tremblay.
Jack. I liked seeing Jack, the character,
Yeah.
experience the outside world for the first time, because you got to think of how powerful that is. He had probably never seen, cars in real life, never smelled, what the outdoors smells like. All he ever saw was a straight up skylight, never seen like the whole scope of the sky. Just think about how many aspects of the world come into play, when you've never seen them before. And that was very cool to see. I would have actually liked to see a little bit more of that. We see him, meet his first dog, and I know he had built that up in his mind as something he really, really wanted to do. And I thought that was cool.
See him meet his first dog.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. But I would have liked to see more of his first experiences, like the first time he had good food, something like that. Or the first time he saw a playground. There's so many things that he missed in life. I mean, he saw them on TV, but he had a lot of trouble separating fantasy from reality until right around when they escaped. But overall, there was a lot of psychology in this movie. High-end, very interesting psych. Obviously Brie Larson has a ton of trauma. The kid has a lot of struggles with social issues, and she has a suicide attempt, which I think was inevitable, given what she's dealing with. So what about this did you not like? What kills the movie for you?
Well, first off, I will start with the good note. I did believe Brie Larson ends up winning an Oscar for her performance in this movie, and I will say from start to finish, she does an amazing job. When they're in the room, you can see her trying her hardest to be a good mother, but you can see the subtleties as she tries to express the strain that she's under from being in this environment for too long. And it was just so well done in that sense, because it was very subtle.
Yeah.
You can see her coming off her hinges at moments, but never fully really going off as she tries to hold herself together, and that internal struggle was shown quite well. Then after, obviously, the escape, you can see the different phases of PTSD that she goes through quite well. She illustrates it well, and it just really draws you into her character.
Yeah, she was a great character. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I will, all in all, I will back the Oscar that she won. That it was well deserved. Swinging back to her counterpart, the little boy, a lot of people were up in arms that he was not nominated for an Oscar, saying that he was right on the level with her. I don't agree at all. I do think that for a child, he did a good job in comparison to most child actors, especially in a movie that dramatic. But when you look at the beginning half, what you're trying to create in that first half hour, 45 minutes of the movie is a child that has questions, but is also dealing with this scenario of being trapped without fully understanding it. And I feel like that, the way he portrays himself in that first half of the movie, he comes off more like a spoiled rich kid, whining and complaining, not so much as a child who's deprived of options due to a scenario.
I think you have to keep in mind that there's a difference between his perceptive reality. Like, he has nothing to compare it to. So maybe he is spoiled. I mean, his mom has nothing else in the world except for him. So he gets attention 100% of the time. Like, he is always getting attention. He's always explained things from his mother. His mother is always there for him. He couldn't have... I mean, you could make the argument that he couldn't have a better upbringing because his mom's always there. She obviously cares so much about him. He's really the only thing motivating her, probably, to kind of fighting. But I agree. It's tough to gauge child actors, because they follow, let's be honest, a lot of small children are basically the same. Like, they don't exactly have deep quality traits. They're all similar. They ask a lot of questions, they get sad, they get angry. It's simple, and yes, he is a little kid in real life, but...
He's 9 years old playing a 5-year-old. He's twice the age of the age.
He's like, dude, I really remember the struggle of being 5, the angst that came with it. I really had it down, you know?
I locked myself in my room preparing for this role, listening to The Cure, and it just really took me back to that place that I was at.
I watched Barney for 3 weeks to get ready.
It was exceptional. It took me to a dark place. I almost went down the same road as Heath Ledger.
But honestly, I agree. It's hard to compare a small child to an adult actor, so I don't necessarily think that he should have won an Oscar. I think he did a good job, but I agree with that.
Horrible. I'm just saying he was not to the level that people worship.
So you said you hated the movie. So what is killing the whole movie?
The movie for me, especially the pacing.
Okay.
Now, the one scene that I'm saying perfectly depicts this, in a lot of movies they draw out scenes. They leave that hanging suspense. And that's to drive your emotions. But in a lot of moments they drive it so long that you're just like, what the... we know what's going to happen. You've driven it to the point where I went from a regular state to feeling that tension to now become frustrated with watching this movie. And when the child's in the back of the cop car waiting to find out if they're even at the right house.
I thought that was a very suspenseful scene.
Oh, it was. And then it gets to a point where you're just staring out the window with the little kid and you're like, all right, is she coming? All right, is she coming? All right, I ain't seeing shit.
I don't know.
I'm waiting.
I disagree.
All
I
right.
thought there was a lot of suspense in that scene. There was a lot at stake. You're really worried about if they're going to find the mom because the kid is not exactly giving a lot of details to the police. They're able to figure it out. I thought it was a good scene. I think you need the pacing to be on the slower side for this type of movie.
And I do agree. And I think it should have been slow, which it was. But I'm saying it was to the point where it was too slow.
Okay.
To the point where you're now going from being not attached to heavily attached to now starting to detach again from the scene.
I mean, I could see that argument. I think overall, the movie is separated into some very good acts. Like you have Act 1, room, captivity. Act 2, kind of the road to recovery, getting back into life. And then it basically ends with her suicide attempt, and then you have the third act, which is them overcoming their second struggle of coping, and now they are all together. And one of the best scenes I thought was when they were both in the hospital, in the emergency room, and Jack is, in her bed with her. He's very confused about the world. He's meeting strangers for the very first time.
That was the first scene that I realized it legitimately was a boy.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I can see your argument with the pacing. I can definitely understand how you could be bored with it. I could see the argument for it not being the best picture, but I do think it is deserving to be on the list. There's so much complex emotion in that movie.
But at the same point, they just made simple mistakes. In that movie, once they're escaped, like you said, almost the entire focus is on her dealing with her PTSD. You almost completely lose sight of him because he just goes from I'm not talking to anyone to now he's eating a bowl of cereal with the mom's new husband, and he's just like, oh, and now I've got a friend, and now I've got a dog, and now everything's going well, but my mom's losing her mind, so let's just cut my hair, send it to her, and everything's going to be okay.
A 5-year-old child is much more flexible with that type of stuff than an adult.
Well, what I'm saying is there were, like you said, experiences that were had there that weren't shown. They chose to only show her.
Okay.
Which then takes away from the story because you're watching them go through it together. You're watching them escape together. And then you're just watching her deal with it.
Okay. That is a very good point. So, what did you guys think? Did you like the movie? Did you think it was overrated? Do you think it deserved to be a Best Picture nominee? We'd like to hear back from you. Let us know. Important subject matter, the church's sanction of molestation of children. That is a very tough subject, a very important subject.